All right, welcome into Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. It's a special brew as the Boston Bruins about 30 minutes ago announced that Jim Montgomery has been relieved of his coaching duties. Joe Sacco has been named the interim head coach. Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, as always, is proudly presented by Fazenda, fazendacoffee.com/morning brew. Go check out fazendacoffee.com. And thank you to them for being our lead in pod sponsor. Razor, let's get right to it. This is a team that struggled, understatement. While they are technically just a game under 500, the eye test, for me at least, screams much different than that. This is not an organization that can wait around, I think, for them to get going. I think they felt that they just are not anywhere near where they need to be going. Jim Montgomery relieved of his coaching duties, 4 o'clock or so Eastern time this afternoon. Do you understand the move? We have not heard from Don Sweeney or Cam Neely just yet, partner. And we're not going to until tomorrow. We're doing this due to travel and work assignments soon after the announcement came out. But do you understand and do you get why this decision was made now?
Yeah, last night was bad. The Columbus game was the put them over the edge. You do that on home ice in front of your fans, in front of the entire city to see and watch when everybody's on eggshells already after the last month, especially that the team wasn't clicking. The special teams are at the bottom of the league, and that's what happens to coaches. They get fired within 3 years, especially, or unless you win Stanley Cups.
Yeah. Where do you think is it possible to have a moment or two where this thing started to turn south? Is it not possible because we're not sitting in the room with the guys? You know, we've seen him on the bench. You know, the Marchand, the Pastrnak, we'll call them incidents. Incidents may aren't the right word. The moments there, Marshy and him getting into it, Pastrnak being benched. We've seen him emotional. We've seen him very controlled as well. I guess we've seen the wide range of the emotional spectrum out of him. So, but is it possible to say, hey, this was it? Or is it just, like you said, just the game, the result, and where the team is at right now?
Yeah, no, I think I don't think there was a moment. I think they were hoping there was going to be a moment that went the other way. I think they were trying to be very patient. They were trying to allow this to work its way through. I certainly don't hold those two public moments like, oh, that's it. That'll be the end of him. I think it's cumulative, and the fact that again, you go back so often, special teams are related to coaches. That's a big coaching aspect. And when you're at the bottom, when you've never been, essentially, or at least not in this generation or this era of hockey, you haven't been anywhere near those places. It just ends up falling on the coach, and the 20 game mark, the 25% of the season, you can't lose anymore.
It did seem at times, though, that the guys were not, there's that term, playing for him, right? Where, and I don't know how you completely describe it except for energy, passion, attitude. Isn't that, Razor, part of the responsibility of the coach to get through to the players so they have that? Now, I understand these are pros. I understand that these are guys that are in many ways also responsible for their own, bringing their own effort to the game. But getting through to players is the ultimate responsibility of the coach.
It certainly is. And 1,000,000% each one of those players knows that moment that this wasn't working anymore. Like, they all have the story. There's no question about that. We're not going to hear about it. We're not going to know. And
exactly.
That's not going to come out. But every time a coach got fired, in my career, I knew why, and the players knew why. And you just kind of go along with it. So that kind of refers back to your last question to me. It's not overt, but it happens. There's something that turns guys off and makes it really hard for coaches to come back from. And sometimes they do. Sometimes, the players just start playing well and feeling good about themselves. Unfortunately, in this case, they started feeling worse about themselves. As much as they were trying to keep the noise outside and they were trying to bring positive attitudes, it wasn't resonating. And obviously through communication, they came to the decision that they had to move on.
Well, the numbers aren't pretty. You know, if you look at it, yeah, the Bruins have 19 points, and if you look at points, they're hanging on for dear life to a playoff spot. I know we don't have to talk about playoffs just yet, but it's what people understand. However, that's just points, Razor. By win percent, they're out of the playoffs, right? They are. And their minus 21 goal differential is tied for second worst in the league. If it wasn't for the Pittsburgh Penguins, they'd be the worst in the league. So the numbers aren't pretty. You mentioned the power play and the penalty kill. And mind you, that just isn't Jim Montgomery. Those assistants as well have a hand in that. And so, but again, he's the leader. He's the boss. So he's the one that's going to get singled out. We know it. Everybody that's listening or watching this podcast knows that's how it works, both the reality and sometimes the unfortunate reality in pro sports, not just the NHL, but pro sports. Coaches are the easy one to move. With that said, what are the 2 or 3 things that it's Joe Sacco, and we can use his name, but any new coach coming in with this team has to focus on immediately, Razor, with this team to have some success?
Well, defensive zone structure,
absolutely,
first and foremost. Second, neutral zone structure, and then third, and this is kind of where the assistant coach, associate coach can come into play, because he's been the good guy for the last 2.5, well, in his case, 11 years. He's been the good guy though with Monty at the helm for 2.5 years, 2.25 years, and he needs to get the guys that aren't playing good back into a positive frame of mind. So those are the 3 tasks right out of the gates. It's all right, when I'm, back to defensive zone structure, back to neutral zone structure, and then let's have individual conversations with each of the guys, knowing exactly what's bothering them, because they went to the assistant coaches when things were bothering them. He can now communicate differently.
Real quick number look at Jim Montgomery in his course of his career with the Bruins, the 22-23 season, the epic regular season, 65 wins, 65-12-5. Oh my. But lost in the first round. Oh my. To the Florida Panthers in that 7-game crazy series. 2023-24 season, Razor, 47-20-0, or 47-20-15. They did make it out of the first round. There were many that thought if he didn't win in the first round against Toronto, that he would maybe have been let go then. That's just conjecture. It seems likely, Razor. I won't say it was going to happen, but it seems like it could have been a distinct possibility. Would you agree with that? If he hadn't gotten out of the first round again 2 years in a row, that would have been a possibility. But
the 3-1 leads too. No,
right, 3-1 lead. Exactly.
Not just losing to a really good team twice in a row. Just the leads.
Exactly. The optics of that, I think, would have been too much. But his team pulled it off with the David Pastrnak goal in overtime against Toronto. This year, 8-9-3, again, a .475 win percentage. And it's more than it's not that they're barely 500, for me at least. It is how they are or are not playing. They are not playing with discipline, structure, passion, the kind of intensity, the kind of pride in the Bruins sweater that I think, that the ownership demands and is used to, but also the fans. The fans deserve it too. We have not seen that yet.
No, we haven't. I think also the contract situation comes into play a little bit. If he had another year on his deal, the vibe and the calling for him probably wouldn't have happened quite as quickly. And again, that outside noise gets inside no matter what you do, and that might have affected things a little bit as well. But no, at the end of the day, it's what's happened. The product on the ice, again, 5-1 Columbus at home after a terrible 3-2 loss in overtime at home on a Saturday afternoon when everybody's watching, coming off an 8-2 loss, 7-2 loss. So
coming off your previous home game, no shots in the third period against Ottawa.
And you've scored one goal. You've scored one goal in the third period on home ice the entire season. So it's just that stuff adds up, and it probably added up to more than most guys would have survived. But I think they were trying to be patient. They tried to recognize his record. They tried to recognize what he had done. But Enough's enough.
Now it falls on the players, right? Now
Oh
this
yeah.
falls on the players
Yep.
to get their backsides in gear. Now
Yeah.
let's see what they are, and then you got to, if not, then you got to talk about roster construction and all the things that they've done. Let's talk about Joe Sacco for a couple of minutes here, Razor, as we do this special mini brew. It's like a double shot of espresso, buddy. Could you use a double? You could use a double shot of espresso.
A
It
little
looks
yawn.
like.
I got practice here. I got to get cooking.
Okay,
I got to wake. I got to get my energy up. So that espresso would be good. Yes,
that would be a double shot of Fazenda. All right, Joe Sacco, coach for 4 seasons with the Colorado Avalanche. You go back to the mid 2000s, and he was a finalist for the Jack Adams Award for the 2009-10 season. That was his first with the Colorado Avalanche. 43, 30, and 9. Was the record there that season. After that, and they qualified for the playoffs, but after that, Razor, it was 3 years of not qualifying. A quick sketch, so to speak, a quick summary of what perhaps the Bruins can expect from Joe Sacco as the interim head coach for right now.
Well, it's going to be very familiar, right? Very, very familiar. He's been here for 11 years, so there won't be there. This isn't bringing Mike Keenan in and overhauling the entire operation. We think we need a couple tweaks. We think we need a bit of a different voice. We think we need someone that actually knows what our structure is and what we're all about as well, though. We don't want an overhaul of this. We don't think we're that far away. And in those situations, the other thing that's interesting, just looking at this, he went from assistant coach to associate coach this year. He got his new deal this year. That bumped up his title and pay, I assume, as well. So that's a little telling as well. Maybe foreshadowing, I guess, from if we were looking at it in July at this point now. But we're not. I can expect Joe to say we're not doing much different. We're just going to do it better and get back to what we've done over the years.
Well, I don't have the schedule in front of me, meaning the practice schedule, but we know that they have practice on Wednesday. Again, folks, we are recording this Thursday late afternoon, right after the announcement of Jim Montgomery being relieved of his coaching duties. The Bruins have a full practice on Wednesday, game on Thursday. We'll have a skate on Friday and then head to Detroit. After that, I believe there's a couple of days in between before the next game. I don't have it in front of me. A good host would.
They go Tuesday, Wednesday. So
that's
Sunday,
right.
Monday off.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know how it works for Thanksgiving, if that counts as their weekly day off or.
No, well, it doesn't, because they have to travel. They have to travel home from I'm guessing they won't practice on Thanksgiving because of the back-to-backs, but I don't know if that counts as a
so they might have to give a day off on Sunday and have practice Monday.
Yeah. Okay. So he's only going to have 2, maybe 3 legitimate practices. It's going to have to be a lot of conversation, as you said, some video, no question about it. It will be hard to change the X and O, the dynamics of the X's and O's early on, but maybe he doesn't want to. That's going to be something that will be asked of him coming up that we'll have to figure out. But Joe Sacco has been with the Boston Bruins organization, by the way, Melrose, Mass. Beg your pardon. I apologize.
That's
no, it's Medford. I had it right. I got my M's mixed up. So anyway,
Bricks Melrose.
Yes, thank you. Too much. But Joe Sacco has been part of the Bruins organization, the coaching staff, since the 14-15 season. So he has been here for a long time, knows the players, both in the front office, behind the scenes, and obviously on the ice very well. That'll provide some comfort. The guys I know really respect the hell out of him. On the other hand, he's going to have to push them. He's going to have to push them to another level. All right. Anything else that we want to cover quickly here before you get going, I get going? Coaching change. You've been through it. I've been through my shares as a broadcaster. I've seen it. It's cliche. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But now they had to do something, Razor. We talked about that last night, but they had to.
No, that's right. They were backed into that corner, and this is typically the first valve, the easiest valve, and the one that goes first. And it's been pulled, and now you always get the bump. I would expect more energy the next week. It'll be after the holiday that you really see whether this worked or not.
Whether it sticks. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Again, Joe Sacco named the interim head coach for the Boston Bruins. Bruins next game is Thursday at home against Utah. Razor and I will have a show after the Utah game. And so we will talk more about the coaching change. We will also have heard from Don Sweeney. I'm assuming Cam Neely, for sure Don Sweeney and Joe Sacco before then. So we can talk about that as well. But folks, we wanted to get out a special morning brew with Jaffe and Razor quickly and just address it quickly. Bruins made their decision, and that Jim Montgomery, again, relieved of coaching duties. Joe Sacco in as the interim head coach. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this special brew. And as always, enjoy your coffee.